We architects are the scene painters of the world. These scenes of marble, granite, and bronze bring to our senses a vivid realization of stirring actions and heroic deeds of actors long since gone.
The turn of the 20th century. Cleveland was the backdrop for progress, American style. The city on the lake was a star on the rise. She entered the 1900s as the nation's 7th largest city, her future bright with the promise of autos and steel, perfectly positioned to join the constellation of America's industrial giants. But Cleveland did not yet look the part. In need of a plan, city leaders devised a design competition to summon the nation's best and brightest architects. Who better to imagine what Cleveland might be? The winning concept was known as the Cleveland 1903 Group Plan, created by 3 of America's leading architects, John Carrere, Arnold Bruner, and Daniel Burnham. Burnham was the chief designer for the Chicago World's Columbian Exposition of 1893. He brought to Cleveland the City Beautiful movement, a vision of how American cities could look, lined with grand avenues and malls, flanked by buildings designed in the classical European style. The group plan promised to dress Cleveland for success in the 20th century.
Well, the group plan, one could say, was Cleveland's move into the major leagues of civic endeavor, if you will. The group plan really did 2 things. It cleared an enormous area of rundown buildings and slums and red light districts in Cleveland that was north of Public Square, and the plan was to replace with a vast esplanade, an open mall of about 500 feet wide that opened from just north of the square out to the lakefront and surrounded by Beaux-Arts buildings. It was the City Beautiful movement. It was urban planning at its best, really, at the turn of the century.
It was a bold and visionary plan, even for a city as progressive as Cleveland. Architect Arnold Bruner was commissioned to design the crown jewel of the ambitious new plan, the Federal Building. With the Cleveland Public Library, it would form the southern flank of the mall. A new railroad station to the north would anchor the mall to the shore of Lake Erie. The new Federal Building would house a combination of government services: the United States Post Office, Customs House, and Courthouse. It would secure Cleveland's place among major American cities. The cornerstone for the Federal Building was laid on May 20th, 1905, with great ceremony. A parade wound through downtown Cleveland, marching to the beat of a patriotic tune, guided by a vision of what Cleveland could be. As construction began, Arnold Bruner proved a perfectionist with no small plans. He rejected almost as much building material as he accepted, and he erected a scale model to judge his design's final effect. Bruner also commissioned the nation's leading artists to join in his grand composition. The young architect imagined the building as a symphony of art and architecture, where painting and sculpture harmonized with design. Cleveland's post office, Custom House, and Courthouse building was completed in 1910 and dedicated a few months later, in March of 1911. The final cost was $3,318,000. Bruner received rave reviews.
It was designed in a collaboration between architect and artist. So it truly is of the highest order of architecture if you interpret it in terms of art. The art in this building is so integral to its personality, to its persona, to its grandeur, that is what's truly what makes it special.
This wonderful new building, which was the first step in this mall, its opening signified the beginning of a very mature, very well-dressed Cleveland, if you will.
Architect Arnold Bruner had succeeded in fusing power with poetry. His vision was clear right from the entrance. Majestic bronze doors, now gone, were framed by two statues by sculptor Daniel Chester French, best known for the Lincoln Memorial in Washington, D.C.
One of the groups, called Jurisprudence, presents a figure of justice, calm and serene. The treatment of the other group, Commerce, is more modern. These are wonderful creations, and Cleveland ought to be proud of them. W.J. Murphy, 1916.
Cleveland was proud. Visitors could enter the building through any of three portals. All opened on a main corridor extending the entire length of the building. It was a courtly expanse, 30 feet wide, with a vaulted ceiling 30 feet high, constructed entirely of Italian marble. The arches were intricately patterned, the arched windows trimmed in bronze.
The main corridor on the ground floor is one of the great successes of the building. It will always look well. It will always wear well. Crowds of hurrying people can use it without feeling that it makes too gorgeous a background for the commonplace business of buying a 2-cent stamp, while at the same time there is stamped upon a sensitive visitor the impression of enrichment without ostentation and dignity without mere dull solemnity. Herbert Crawley, The Architecture Record.
The whole idea was that this would be a public place, and it was a place that people were to go and enjoy.
There were secrets, too. Hidden lookout galleries perched above the first-floor workroom gave postal inspectors a bird's-eye view of mail sorters below.
Well, they didn't have any security cameras like we have today, and they didn't have as sophisticated methods of fingerprinting then. So what they would do is they would have, they called it a postal peep, and the area above the first floor was actually a place where they could look down on their employees and see whether or not they were opening up the mail to steal anything out of it.
On the second floor, offices retain paintings by the era's leading artists. But perhaps most impressive are the two ceremonial courtrooms on the third floor.
Well, I sit in the historic East courtroom, which is a magnificent room. It's a room with a deep history. It was the original circuit courtroom when we built this courthouse in 1910. And it's a room of great dignity. It has beautiful attributes. It must have been done at a time when people were very proud of their justice system.
Here, too, art commingles with architecture. The mural, The Law, by Edwin Blashfield, frames the judge's bench and the room's purpose, all part of the architect's grand plan.
It seems to me that in our daily lives we have underestimated the influence that our backgrounds, our scenery exert on us. Whoever has seen Blashfield's mural painting in the United States courtroom in the Cleveland Federal Building must recall its effect on the public. Its beauty and strength, the two splendid angels pointing to the 10 Commandments, the majesty of the law, and the tragedy of crime. Here, too, make a background that speaks, that fulfills its purpose.
This room is a place that resonates with people no matter what their background is. It's a room where they feel quieted. I've never disciplined a lawyer in this room. It's a room where people sense that they're in a special proceeding room, which they are, no matter how minor the case may seem.
The West ceremonial courtroom mirrors the East.
It's a pleasure for me to be here in this room, in this court system, and I think this room personifies really what being a judge is all about.
Like the East courtroom, the West is defined by a mural, this one by H. Siddons Mowbray.
The picture represents the coming together of the privileged classes and the people, a movement which brought about our common law. W.J. Murphy, 1916.
A lot of people come here from outside just to see the courtroom, so we always leave the door open, at least during business hours.
Without a doubt, the architecture there is the kind of thing that you can't reproduce today. The closest thing to it that I can think of are some of the palaces in Europe that are full of gold and marble and fancy plasterwork.
With the federal building complete, an artistic and architectural marvel, a question remained in 1911. Would the rest of Cleveland's Grand Esplanade ever be completed? Other cities had devised similar plans, but none had ever made it off the drawing board. In 1907, an amended version of the 1903 Cleveland Group Plan was released. The buildings planned for the east side of the mall were gradually constructed, all in the same Beaux-Arts style as the federal building. There was the Cuyahoga County Courthouse in 1912, then 3 other buildings in the 1920s, including the federal building's virtual twin, the Cleveland Public Library. The dream was realized, at least in part.
In 1910, 1911, well, Cleveland had leapt one more notch. It was now the 6th largest city in the United States. It had a population that was edging up towards 600,000. It was a polyglot city. Most of its population, the majority of its population, was foreign-born or foreign birth. Its industries were booming, steel and iron, the automotive industry. Cleveland was one of the industrial powerhouses in the Western world.
But the Depression stifled spending, leaving the west side of the mall unfinished until much later. It was finally completed with a modern flair. The buildings of the early 1900s have continued to serve the public well for nearly a century. The courthouse has provided a grand stage on which much history has been played out, the backdrop to the stirring actions and heroic deeds that Arnold Bruner believed a great building should be. In 1918, socialist presidential candidate Eugene Debs was tried in the East Ceremonial courtroom for opposition to World War I.
I have been accused of obstructing the war. I admit it. Gentlemen, I abhor war. I would oppose the war if I stood alone. Eugene Debs.
Debs was convicted by a jury of violating the Espionage Act of 1917, but was later pardoned. The Debs case echoed through the halls in the 1970s. Judges heard civil suits following the shootings at Kent State University. The case was settled 1 month after the trial started, but the lessons learned live on.
The issue of excessive use of force by law enforcement agencies or those acting with the authority of law enforcement agencies is a critical national issue to which the attentions of the American people must be drawn.
I can tell you that one of the big cases historically was the school desegregation case that was handled by Chief Judge Frank Battisti. The jury found that there had been discrimination by the Cleveland school system, and therefore the system had to engage in some remedies to take care of that problem. And busing went on for a long period of time with quite some controversy.
If many cases are fraught with tension and tragedy, other proceedings bring joy.
The naturalization ceremonies that take place in the courthouse are one of the things that the judges particularly like to do because it gets us away from the burdens of the criminal cases or the wrangling of attorneys in the civil cases.
I've found that particularly when we use this room for naturalizations, it's a powerful message to people from other parts of the world who care enough to become American citizens. When they're sitting here, maybe there'll be 100, 110 people sitting here, and they look up and they recognize something that resonates deeply for them.
Today I went through the process of becoming a citizen. A judge came into the room and we all rised up together, almost as a community, and took an oath, and we became citizens together.
Today I have a citizenship. I'm very happy today.
Upholding the law of the land is one legacy of Cleveland's historic courthouse. The other is the belief that a city can be beautiful by design. In 1998, Cleveland's federal building began a transformation. It was renamed the Howard M. Metzenbaum United States Courthouse. In 2005, after a 30-month, $51 million renovation by the General Services Administration, it was officially rededicated. One feature of the renovation is the GSA's commitment to combine the gold standard of historic preservation with a green approach to modern energy conservation. The Courthouse project integrates preservation with sustainability through LEEDs, leadership in energy and environmental design. Aggressive waste reduction activities spanned all areas of the renovation, from HVAC systems to recycling furniture and fixtures. The renovation also bridges the gap between the need for public accessibility and tenant privacy. At the heart of the newly modernized building is a central skylit atrium. It encloses the building's original outdoor light court, designed in a time before air conditioning. The bright new soaring space brings the outdoors in for visitors on the main level, while tenants enjoy the view from balconies reminiscent of an Italian Renaissance palace. Another colorful addition is a series of 35 murals by 19th century American artist Francis Davis Millet. GSA's Fine Arts program conserved the murals depicting the delivery of early 20th century mail throughout the world by railroad, dog sled, camel, steamship, coach, and postman. Originally commissioned for the postmaster's office, which was gutted decades ago, the murals are now prominently displayed for the public to enjoy.
We want the building to retain an importance to the community. It occupies such a prime position on Public Square, and it to be real. We want it to continue to function as part of today's world.
Even as the old building gets a new lease on life with new tenants, the federal courts moved to a new home. An elegant, modern structure as different in looks as it is similar in architectural excellence.
The courthouse is going to be, the new one is going to be magnificent in its own way. We put a lot of time as a court into overseeing the design of that courthouse and trying to make sure that it too has its own kind of magnificence.
This place needs to be cared for because of all the people who come after us, who without this setting don't get the same opportunity or message. So I think we need to be serious about conserving and not just think of ourselves, but think about the future.